And here we are at the book. Of course, I've chosen it for Passover, but there's another reason too. Watch for the pages just as the plagues begin, and this is what you will hear. Then at once, the world was changed. Life unraveled, rearranged. I really can't think of a better description of what we're living through right now with the COVID pandemic. These are the end papers, the first thing you see when you open the book. And they show you that it's nighttime when the story begins. And this is the title page. Tells you that the book is called The Longest Night, a Passover story, written by Laurel Snyder and illustrated by Katja Chen. You will also find out that it's published by Schwartz and Wade Books. These are the people who paired Laurel's story with Katja's pictures. After the pandemic, you can find the print book in the Levy Library. Right now, I'm sharing the ebook from Los Angeles Public Library. This is the secret librarian page, also known as the copyright page. If I want to find out what the book is about, a librarian knows to look at this page for a one-line description. See if you can find it. Hint, the first word is summary. I'll just point to it. What other useful information is on this page? And you can pause if you want to look around here. This is the dedication page. And this is where the author and the illustrator thank people for their help with the book, or just tell them that they love them. And since this is an ebook, there's a table of contents with links that lets you go quickly from one part of the book to another. Now, sometimes the author wants to tell you about why she wrote the book or tell you something else important about the story. And this is called an author's note. And I do think that this is something you should hear. So I'm going to read it to you. So this is Laurel Snyder talking. Growing up, I remember listening to the story of the Exodus each year at Passover. I'd be sitting with my whole family at what felt like the longest table in the world. It ran all the way from the dining room into the living room. Candles burned and silver gleamed on a white tablecloth. The air smelled like a rich mix of chicken soup, cut flowers, and freshly cleaned house. Slowly, we made our way through the Seder. We read from a threadbare Haggadah, a small gray book with black and white woodcuts to stare at when I got bored. We sang Dayenu. The youngest reliable child, sometimes me, stumbled through the 4 questions. We recited the plagues, letting a drop of wine fall for each. Blood, frogs, fleas, beasts, cattle disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and death of the firstborn. Yet, when we told the story of the Exodus, the harrowing tale of how the Israelites fled Egypt and the only homes they'd ever known, we didn't get to hear much about all the people who ran. The story was mostly Moses and Pharaoh bargaining for the lives of everyone else. I tried to imagine it as I waited impatiently for my matzo ball soup. I wondered what it was like for a kid back then, living each day as a slave, then suddenly dashing out into the desert. I wanted to know what it was like to be a child of Israel. I couldn't quite picture it. This book is my answer to the curious girl I was. And I hope that if somewhere out there other kids are wondering too, this book will help them to imagine. Sometimes a book includes a list of words that might be new to you. This is called a glossary. Of course, you already know the Hebrew words Abba and Ima for father and mother. Boils, hard, painful bumps on the skin, was one of the plagues. A cistern holds water. Mortar is a mixture that holds bricks or stone together. A strand is a beach. And to whittle is to carve a piece of wood into a shape. And here we are, finally, at the first page of the story. And I will read you The Longest Night. Every morning with the light came another day like night. In the heat and blowing sand, each gray dawn my work began. Spreading mortar thick on stone, I built someone else a home. All around me, eyes to ground, other children trudged around. Nervous shadows glanced my way, but we never tried to play. Only monkeys and some cats ever got to run like that. Now and then, a single dove circled high and sailed above. I'd look up and watch him roam as I made my way back home, and I wondered if the air tasted fresh and sweet up there. When dusk fell, the watchful moon softly crept into my room. Then, at once, the world was changed. Life unraveled, rearranged. First, the river bloomed and bled, stained her banks a rusty red. Ima stared across the strand at the wound that split the land, nudged me off to fill my pail from the cistern, safe but stale. Though she sang her sweeping song, something in the tune was wrong. Croaking noises filled the yard. Frogs jumped high and landed hard, flipping, hopping through the day. Caught one, but he got away. Itching, biting, awful fleas brought our masters to their knees. Strange to see them scratch and fuss, hurt and helpless, just like us. Then the wolves ran through the street, sniffing at our door for meat. That night, I had dreams of claws, matted fur, and hungry jaws. Ima hummed her sleeping song, but I tossed and turned till dawn. Gentle lambs and goats grew ill, bleating, breathing hard, until great dark flocks of wings above joined and circled near my dove. Like their beasts, our masters fell. Just how sick we couldn't tell. Boils and blisters, searing pain made them curse and call in vain. Then my sister set to wailing at the sky, a fire hailing. So I held her best I could, said our house was strong and good. In the distance, whirring wheat, locusts chewing in the heat, promised hunger all year long with their grinding, gnawing song. Strangely, Abba seemed to wait calmly for each harsh new fate, sat and whittled in his chair. I too sat and said a prayer. Night like blindness, thick like tar, from our windows stretched so far. We survived that longest night, one small island made of light. On the day we killed the lamb, Baba wiped his bloody hands, marked the post above the door, drank and ate, and said no more. Till the saddest sound, so stark, cries like knives that split the dark, cries that found us frozen, numb, woke us, made us rise and run. Cries that drove us to the square and the others waiting there. Everyone was waiting there. In that night, so dim and cold, we all did as we were told. Packed our bread in haste and flew, running from, but also to. Made our way to sifting sands, scrambling feet, but clasping hands. Thirsting, thrilling, full of fright. None of us were slaves that night. From the mortar and disease, from the silence and the fleas, with our hungry dogs a howl on and into next and now. On we dashed till suddenly we came up against the sea. Ima offered up no song for the waters or the throng. None of us knew what to do till the sea was ripped in two. Till the sea was ripped in two. Walls of water all around made a giant rushing sound. But we charged, we raced, we ran, hurled out from that hard land to a sky so wide and free, full of light and room to be, to an endless sunrise spread pink above us, gold and red. Salty spray was everywhere. Sand and sun were in my hair. How I danced along the shore, never having danced before. How I shouted by the sea, loud and long and joyfully. As we found in open air, all our voices everywhere. It's really an amazing story, isn't it? Thank you for joining me for this stay-at-home story time. You can follow up by talking with your children about the story. Go beyond just, did you like it? Children love retelling a story that they've enjoyed, so encourage that. Retelling a story, by the way, is a very Jewish activity. This book goes through all 10 plagues, but doesn't necessarily name them. Go back over the story and identify the plagues with them. And little hint, you'll find the plagues listed in the author's note. This story is full of emotion. Talk about all the different feelings. Ask specific questions too. For example, the book begins in a day like night and ends in an endless sunrise. Older children will get the symbolism of darkness and light, representing slavery and freedom. But even younger children will surprise you with how deeply they understand this story. And do consider following up with the author and illustrator activities. You'll have a great time and indulge in a little tikkun olam, preparing the world and making it a better place. Toda rabah and lihit ra'ot.